Good morning, noon, night, whatever time it is that you're accessing this. I just want to welcome you to Physical Science. My name is Amy Lumley, and today what I'd like to do with this video is just go over some of the what to expect from this class, some tips to help you succeed, and to let you know just kind of how the class is set up. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing is to figure out where I am. Like I said, my name is Amy Lumley. You'll hear more about me throughout the semester. I teach all of the chemistry and the physical science class here at Coffeyville Community College. My office is on campus. It's actually inside the chemistry lab. So it's room 202B in the Arts and Science building. It's literally in the chemistry lab. So if you're on campus, feel free to stop by, see me anytime. If you're not on campus, you can still get a hold of me, and actually, those on campus can also. I have my phone number right there. I don't check my phone normally. The easiest way, the most reliable way to get a hold of me is actually by email. Now, I have several email addresses. They all go to the same inbox. My old one, the one I use the most, is amyl@coffeyville.edu. It's nice and short. You could use lumley.amy or amy.lumley@coffeyville.edu. So you have lots of choices. So just pick one and go with it. Now, there are some things that you will need for this class. The first is the textbook. Highly, highly, highly recommend that you have the textbook. Now, what I have requested for the bookstore to do this semester is to actually give you a hard copy of the book. You can get an online version. The online version is kind of cool. It has online homework and all sorts of stuff. But what I decided to do this particular semester is to go ahead and go back to just the hardbound or the physical copy of the book. That way, it's a little bit easy. I do allow you to access the book during certain, like your chapter tests. You can look at the book, but not during unit tests. And so it's just a little bit easier if you can actually have the book and it doesn't mess with the proctoring situation quite as much. Now, the book that I chose is An Introduction to Physical Science by a gentleman by the name of Shipman. This is um, a pretty standard physical science book. It seems to be, I think it's a fairly straightforward book. So I hope that you enjoy it. I do read through it. I highly recommend that. But we'll talk a little bit more about how you're going to be able to access each chapter. You also do need to have a calculator. Now, this does need to be a scientific calculator, meaning it has a 10 to the X button. Here's one. There's all sorts of different examples. It does not have to be a super expensive one. Here's another one. Here's a little TI-82 or TI-30. Sorry, not the TI-82, TI-30. This is a little Casio. It does not have to be the big screen graphing calculator, nothing that expensive. These are usually about $10 to $15 at Walmart or stores like that. Get it off Amazon, whatever the case might be. But it does need to have a 10 to the X button for whenever we get into looking at like wavelengths and the idea of the mole. That does, it helps to have that particular button. Now, I know your cell phone has a calculator app. It's good to know how to use that one. And if you didn't know on some of them, if you turn the basic calculator sideways, then all of a sudden you have a scientific calculator. It's awesome. But you can't use that on the test. I do have the test proctored, meaning that it will record what you're doing. And so we want to just make sure that you have a regular calculator. That way, I can't suspect you of doing something that I'm sure you wouldn't be doing. So get the calculator. The other thing is to have some patience and perseverance. Now, this particular class, we cover so many different topics. It's crazy. But because we have so many different topics that we cover, we don't go in depth in any single one topic. So if you've had some of these topics before, some of this might be a review. And you know what? Review isn't a bad thing. Every time you're exposed to something, you definitely learn it better. So hopefully that will happen for you also. If you get to a subject that you don't really care for, don't worry. It won't be long before we move on to something else. The perseverance comes in because the semester can get pretty long throughout the semester, and I want you to do well. I want you to keep at it. So just keep on keeping on. There is a lot of work. This is a 5-hour course, and I don't want you to get too extremely overwhelmed. So be patient, give yourself a little grace, but keep at it. We're going to cover many different topics, and I hope that you learn a little bit something new with every single topic. Now, this particular class is divided into 5 sections or 5 units. The first unit tends to be the one the students like the least. It's all about physics. Now, there is a little bit of math in this one. It's probably the most math intensive out of all the ones that we're going to talk about. Don't let that scare you away. It's okay. You get through the first section, maybe the first 2 sections, you'll be good. This one's going to go into some of the basic ideas of classical physics, where we're looking at how forces are going to interact with one another. Then we'll get into waves, electricity, and also nuclear. So that's all combined into one unit. So we'll talk about the definitions of waves. We'll talk a little bit about optics, get a little bit into electricity, not real in depth again, just enough to give you some basic knowledge about these different areas. Now, nuclear is pretty cool. That's where my interest starts to really peak as we talk about looking at how a nuclear weapon and a nuclear power plant are different, but then what are some of the similarities between them? Yeah, it's all kind of cool stuff. The next section is chemistry. Chemistry is what I traditionally teach, so again, kind of just makes it a little easier for me because that's my section. The next one up there is astronomy. So we're going to start talking about the study of the universe. We'll talk about our solar system. We'll talk about the planets, what makes a planet versus a dwarf planet. We'll talk about some different stars, the universe, small bodies within our solar system. That's all in astronomy. And the last section is earth science, which actually has turned out to be one of my favorite sections to teach. So earth science, we start off talking about the atmosphere and weather. I'm a Kansas girl, so weather is always kind of a cool thing to talk about. And then we get into talking a little bit about rocks and geology and plate tectonics. We'll talk about earthquakes. We'll talk about volcanoes. I have some really cool activities to go along with those. So I hope that you find those parts pretty interesting also. So many students want to know, how is this class going to be set up? It's an online science class. Sometimes that can be a challenge. So let's talk about some of the things you can expect on a regular basis. The first is you have the material that needs to be covered. Now on this one, there's a couple things you have. Number one, the book is a great resource. So go through the book, read the chapters, take notes on the chapters. I will provide a lot of PowerPoint slides to give you it's good to give you an outline or a brief view. You need to add to that though. On some of the chapters, I've given some video lectures. Now, this might be just the PowerPoint with an audio commentary with it. Some chapters I've actually have a written commentary, and other chapters I have video lectures. I'm working on adding more video lectures, but that is a labor of love, let me tell you what. So on those, you can listen to me going over the same type of notes I would do for my face-to-face class. On some of them, I actually ask you to pause it and work out a problem and then come back. So try those, see how it goes. Now, I do think attendance in a face-to-face class is really important because what I find is that if a student is in class every day, they tend to learn it more. Maybe it's the repeated exposure, maybe it's more of them giving an effort, however that might be. So what I'm doing for the online class is I have an attendance portion for this. So we have started a new method of keeping attendance called UAttend. On this one, it's actually going to give you points for logging in, and it'll give you points up to like 3 times per week. Yes, you can log in more than that, but I don't want you to wait till the last day and try to do everything that last day. So I'm trying to help encourage you to get into the class multiple times per week. Again, you will get some points associated with that attendance or that logging in and looking stuff over. Now, each chapter is also going to have a quiz and a test. The quiz is the easy one. It's just over usually terminology. Occasionally I have some just multiple choice questions. So I want you to become familiar with what is being covered on that particular chapter. The quizzes you can take an unlimited number of times. You can keep taking it until you achieve whatever grade you want to get on it. I would recommend going for the highest number of points, to be honest. The other thing is you're going to have a chapter test. Now, the chapter test, you have to be well prepared for. You can only take it once. And it's going to be mostly multiple choice questions over that chapter. Again, you can only take this one once, so you need to wait until you feel pretty ready to do that particular chapter. Now these, I will allow open book test for the chapter test. So you can use the book. That's why I recommend having that physical copy. But these are also going to be proctored. And these are proctored in that they're going to record the screen as well as do like a browser lockdown and all sorts of stuff. So you can't Google stuff. You can't have your friend right next to you and say, hey, what did you get for this? What do you think? I don't want you using, I've had people access the internet in different formats to try to find the answers. Don't do that. Just read the questions and put down what you think it's going to be. But you do need to be prepared. You're welcome to use your textbook. You can also use notes. If you have notes for the textbook, just show me on the screen. Say, oh, look, this is what I'm using. See how pretty? I added lots of writing on here. That way I can see what you're doing. So that's the chapter test. The unit tests are a little bit different. Oh, and the chapter test and unit tests also have a time restraint on them. So you're not given an unlimited number of time. Just be well prepared. You'll be fine. The unit test is going to be over a unit or a section. So like all the physics chapters are going to be covered by the unit test. Unit test is also a one attempt. It is timed. It is also proctored. On the unit test, you can use one piece of paper front and back. But that's it, just one piece of paper front and back. And I want you to actually show me that piece of paper so I can see the notes that you're using for that. So that is the testing portion. You'll also have some labs. I've tried to do at least 1 or 2 labs for each chapter. Now, labs, this could be anything from watching a video and answering questions, or maybe giving me a reflection. A reflection is not just one sentence. Give me a little bit of information. When you're writing reflections, don't use AI. Actually, just write stuff down in your own words. For the labs, I don't want it typed. In general, I want everything handwritten. So if you're doing a lab, so I said I had some videos, I have some that are website explorations, I have some that will have an activity online. We might use a PhET lab, or I've found some different labs throughout where you actually manipulate things on the screen and then you record the results. When you record the results, just write all of that down. If you can't print out the labs, you can also always just write on notebook paper. That's fine. You also might have some things where it's just a worksheet or like a dry activity. Like whenever we get to the earthquakes, you're actually going to triangulate where an earthquake occurred. You're going to look at plate tectonics and try to figure out the magnitude of different earthquakes. There's all sorts of different activities that you're going to do. But again, write them out by hand. Don't just type the information. And then I might have some other assignments. I am definitely going to add some additional assignments this year. In the past, I've used online homework. I wasn't really happy with that system. So instead, I'm going to try to come up with some stuff on my own to give you a chance to give you some extra exposure to some of these different materials. Now, the last thing I have for you before I want you to go off and start working on those classes is I have some frequently asked questions, some things that often come up to me. The first one, how much time should I expect to spend on class? That's a hard one to give you a set number for. That depends on you personally, how well you know the subject, how easily you learn. There's a lot of different parts to it. But let's think of it this way. If you were taking this as a face-to-face class during a regular semester, you would be in your seat in front of me during class time for 6 hours a week. Yep, 6 hours sitting in front of me. If you take it during the summer, 20 hours per week sitting in front of me for a 4-week class. That's not including any outside study time. That is just in class. So if you think that you're going to be able to, on the last day before it's due, log in, spend 30 minutes and be done, you're probably not going to be well prepared or do well in the class. I'm not saying how long you should expect to spend. All I'm saying is if you were sitting in front of me in class, you'd be in class for at least 6 hours a week, plus whatever study time you have outside of class. So we'll see. The next one is how to best study. This one, again, kind of depends on you personally. Here are some suggestions for me. I would definitely, if there's a video lecture, definitely listen to the video lecture and take notes while listening to it. Read the book for parts that you don't understand. At the end of each chapter in the book, there are questions. I would try to at least look over those, work some of those out. Other things that you could do, you can make yourself flashcards. You could, I'll try to give some different study guides, not for every test, but at least for the unit test. Go through those, try to answer all the questions that you can. As if you do have a video lecture to listen to, if I repeat something a couple times, it's probably something that I want to really emphasize, and that's probably going to be on the test. As you're reading or as you're going through a video lecture or however you're studying a particular section, at the end of each section, stop and think about what was the most important parts that you just learned about. What do you think I would ask you about? You might even think about types of questions that you might see, or how might that question be asked. That is definitely a skill to learn, but it's such a good skill to have. So try that one. The next one, but I did poorly on test. That's also something that's pretty common that I get. One of the great things about the way that this class is set up is I give you a ton of opportunities to earn points. So you get attendance points, you get lab points, you get points for, remember that chapter quiz is just over the terminology, you get points for that. So if you do happen to do badly on some of those chapter tests or a unit test, you have a way to try to soften the blow, so to speak, to make that where it's not going to hurt you quite as bad. Ideally, you're going to do well on all of it, but I do give you these other point opportunities so that not everything is based on test. The next one is how are labs done? The labs, there's a lot of different variations of labs that I do, especially for this course. Some of them will be for videos, so you'll just have a worksheet to do. You'll write a reflection over a video. That's not just one sentence. Remember, good sized paragraphs that you write. Don't use AI to write it. No chat GPT on this. Just write out your reflection. What do you believe about this? Um, we'll have some that are actually dry activities where, we're trying to see the epicenter of a earthquake, or trying to think of some of the other ones. You have one where we're going to figure out the identity of unknown rocks and minerals based on evidence that you're given. So there's all sorts of different activities. Some of them might require things that you can find at home. So I have one where you're going to try to float an aluminum boat. So you take a piece of aluminum foil. If you don't have any, if you're local, you can stop by the office. I can provide some for you. But you build a boat and then you put pennies in it to see how many pennies you can float. That does mean that you need to have some pennies available for you, but that's not like it's a cost to you. It just needs to be some readily available materials. Other ones, I might have you, I do one for power where you actually run upstairs and you time yourself going two different speeds. So you walk it and then another time you run it. You do need to know the vertical distance for this one, but you just find a flight of stairs somewhere to be able to do this one. So there's all sorts of different types of labs. So again, you might have some physical activities, they might be videos, they might be online labs where you manipulate things online and record the results. So there's a whole lot of different things to be able to do. And the last question that I put on my frequently asked questions is there extra credit? Well, I believe you should try to do the first credit first, your regular work, to try to get that done first. But I understand that a little extra credit is always a good thing to have available. So usually what I do towards the end is I give you an opportunity to earn some extra credit by doing a presentation. And then occasionally I have another thing that you may or may not be able to do. So those are usually listed at the end of the semester. But don't skip doing your regular work to try to do the extra credit work. Do your regular work first. And then if you need the little extra boost, well, it'll be okay. So if you have any other frequently asked questions that you think of, shoot me an email, let me know, and I will be glad to add it to this list that I have right here. If not, I'm excited for you to be in class, and I will see you in chapter 1. Bye-bye.